collaborator or tool? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's fine. Yeah, microphone, you can hear me. So my presentation will be about is generative AI a collaborator or a tool, and I will focus on the experience of interaction in the process of artistic creation. I have a background in fine arts. I did my bachelor's in fine arts. After that, I studied philosophy, and now I'm doing a PhD in philosophy on the topic of AI and arts. So my contribution will be also from the perspective of an artist that has tried working with these tools in my own creative process. And so collaboration traditionally refers to the interaction between individuals carrying out different activities in the production of a work. Is a term that has been increasingly applied to mark the use of computer programs or AI in the production of a work, or more generally in artistic practices. Now, mostly it appears to a colloquial understanding. The exact meaning or motivation for its use are not always made explicit. And I mentioned here some four main situations that I identified in current popular and philosophical discourse. And that would be that it is employed in a very general manner in a context that mention AI's display of autonomy or creativity. And we can infer that the choice of the word comes as an emphasis of these attributes or of a break from the use of regular tools. When the AI system is being used in a feedback loop of the type prompt generation, adjusted prompt, new generation, while arguing that AI systems can be considered autonomous creative agents, or in conceptualizations of authorship based on actor network theory. Now, I will not necessarily argue whether it's correct to use the word collaboration in these cases, but what interests me here is actually the concept of interaction, because in all cases, at the minimum, collaboration implies a form of interaction between a human and an AI. Now, a bit of like my aim with this presentation and this work. I follow an intentionalist approach to art, and I want to show that while the interaction between the AI and the artist can fundamentally be considered as the interaction between an artist and the regular tools, it is this experience of interacting with AI systems that can really differ. Going back to interaction, this is another vaguely defined and ambiguously used term. Often denotes mutual or reciprocal action or influence. And I was looking at this four-dimensional model of interaction, which states that interaction refers to subjects of interaction, like who or what interacts, modes of interaction, purposes of interaction, and context and conditions for interactions. Here we are obviously interested in a concept of interaction that covers human non-human exchange processes. And in respect to the creation process of an artwork, we have the artist undertaking an active role in the interaction with other agents or tools and materials with the purpose or goal of creating an artwork. Now, the important question would be, okay, what is the mode of interaction? What is actually happening in this interaction? There is not a singular answer because artists have very different approaches, and each artist will describe his or her working method differently. But usually there is a preliminary idea with a specific process of execution, or a back and forth process where the idea and the execution shape each other before arriving at the final work. And this translates in practices such as using tools or materials or guiding a generative process to achieve an intended outcome, or working with the specificities of the tools and materials or the AI in a more explorative process, which can even include crafting generative AI models to fit a specific purpose. Now going back a bit to my first point, which was that the interaction between AI and artists is the same as the interaction between artists and its regular tools. I say that because a generative AI system do appear in the continuation of a long line of technologies that have enabled automatic image making techniques. Probably the example that is most familiar to everybody is a photography, but we can also talk about other computer-based tools or automatic image making or more analog techniques like the technique of frottage. Furthermore, while AI systems do produce formal features that can be considered artistically relevant in the final artwork, they do not actually exercise know-how or evaluative abilities in producing those pictures as such. I mean, relevant in the sense that we are talking about here. And therefore, while they can be considered agents, they do not qualify as artistically creative agents. And now that I mention agents, I want to focus a bit on this idea of an explorative process of working back and forth between the idea and the execution, because this is a paradigm where interaction becomes a very deliberate and purposeful choice for the final artwork. And I wanted to talk about tools and materials, that actually all tools and materials respond in complex, both expected and unexpected ways, depending on the skill of the artist, on the experience, or just on the uh, manner of handling them. One can choose a method that is more likely to behave in a predictable or unpredictable way. And the artist always takes notice, analyzes, and adapts to these responses. This interaction can feel dialogical because the artist guides the tool and the response guides him. And there are a lot of artists who articulate their work in process not as an imposition of an idea upon a material or some tools, but actually as a becoming that is negotiated with the materials and tools in use. And there are a lot of examples in this case. I just put the example of Richard Serra, which is a sculptor that makes site-specific works, and he's working with very difficult materials like steel, lead. And it was one of the things that he was saying. I thought matter imposed its own form, and you have to deal with the immediacy of matter in relation to process. Because in this case, it's such a difficult material to work with that it it has its own agency, because you are limited to what you can do with it, and you are also limited in how your tools can help you to handle it. Now returning to generative AI, why does still the interaction we have this with these technologies feel different, even if we accept that they do not constitute artistically created agents and the structural logic of feedback and adaptation is analogous to the use and interaction of regular tools? I think the first reason is the most obvious, and that's just the ongoing efforts to simulate interpersonal communication in the modeling of interfaces. And the second one, and this is my point of view is that there is a tendency to infer decision-making capabilities and intention from the system's manner of responsiveness. And what I mean by that is that normally we would be inclined to say that the AI decided to generate something according to a certain prompt, but we would not be inclined to say that, for example, a brush decided to still paint a certain way. And we don't do that because we have very simple causal explanations for that. We don't need to uh, attribute a decision-making process to the materials that we work with. And I was looking, this is obviously maybe not the case when we are dealing perhaps with not such a random paint skill. And this was an example that was given by Arthur Danto. He was telling us to consider the Polish Rider by Rembrandt. And let's say I throw a lot of paint, varnish, stand oil into a centrifuge, give it a spin, and allow it to splat against the canvas. And that splat, by one of those freaks of statistical mechanics, is indiscernible from the Polish rider. I'm asking whether anything from this sort of causal history can have the same meaning as the Polish rider with its assumed history or meaning of the relevant sort at all. And I think that this is actually a very good analogy with what happens in an AI process. It's just that with an AI generative process, these freaks of statistical mechanics, it is actually a norm of performance or functioning of the algorithm. And my other point was that we infer interpretation upon this artifact. I called it misdirected interpretation. I'm not yet sure that this is the best way to describe it, but what I mean is that we force interpretation onto an object that is not of the right kind to be interpreted, because we would not ask, for example, what a random paint splash means or what a natural landscape means or all sorts of these things. So why are we faced with the mere AI output and wonder what it actually means? And my theory is that it's because of this dual construction of the AI output, which is characterized by both randomness and predictability. And by randomness, I mean that it is capable to generate something that we can find surprising. But by predictable, I refer to the fact that it's built to generate an output that features patterns that are statistically matched to a certain meaning or expression. And the probably the most misleading problems is that these patterns are culturally saturated. They are extracted from and pertaining to diverse cultural heritage that is found throughout the training data. So in this case, we are not working with mere natural materials, but the data we can collect about all our cultural heritage is in a sense the material that we are working with now, even if it's devoid of meaning in the one that is fed to the algorithm. And this is how I come to my conclusions, which is basically that the debate over whether AI is a collaborator or a tool is also an issue that concerns skill in actually using the artificial intelligence and the difficulty of scaling both the functioning and the possibilities that such sophisticated systems can offer. And that in the process of creating an artwork, the mode of interaction is not fundamentally different, and that with regular tools or materials, but it's the way the artist makes use of them that can give a feeling of collaboration. And I actually propose that in this case, it can be more useful to frame agency in a creative process, not strictly in relation to the inherent qualities of the potential agents, but actually in respect to the whole creation process of the artwork as a whole. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for the talk. Thank you. Do you have some questions, comments on this?
Thanks for the talk. I wanted to ask, since you mentioned about materials and how they can impose constraints on the creative process, sometimes constraints can enhance creativity. Whereas like AI tools can kind of like ease the life of a creator and lessen the constraints. So do you think this impacts also creativity from this point of view?
I think yes, it can impact the creativity of the artist, because when you are faced with constraints, you are faced with you are required to find certain solution for the constraints you are finding. So yes, that can definitely uh help the actual creative process, while when you are faced with like a multitude of possibilities, it's much easier to forget what you are actually working for and just wander in the latent space of the algorithm without actually engaging in a creative process at all.
Thank you. Other comments, questions?
So thank you for the talk. So I found this idea of attributing agency to AI quite interesting. Once I read that when we are kids tend to attribute agency to everything. And so the question is, maybe we are just kids when we play with AI, or AI brings the kids that is in us. I don't know.
Well, it's definitely a problem of framework, whether you can attribute agency or not, and whether it's actually useful to attribute agency for whatever question you're trying to answer or what you're trying to explore. And I think the creative process of an artwork is definitely in a way overlapping with the idea of play and how we behave as children. So yeah, I agree that in this sense we are children, and we are gonna attribute the agency to the materials we use and the toys we have at hands to do our work, which is the artwork.
Okay. Next speaker or other questions? Someone else want to ask? Okay, we can go. Oh, sorry. There is.
Yes, thank you. This was very interesting. And on the same note than Lorenzo's question, when we speak about AI and artistic practices, we either think about AI as the tool or as the sculptor, so to say. We never think about AI as the clay, so to say, as the matter. So would you say that maybe it is possible to conceptualize the role of AI in the artistic process as the matter of the artistic process, as not as, say, a tool or a collaborator, but really as your medium, so to say. So you are an AI artist because, I mean, there are the sculptors who work with rock and paper, and you work with AI.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I think there can be multiple distinctions to be made or categories which can also be overlapping. And yes, I didn't quite find a way yet to integrate the idea of working with AI as a medium in this presentation. But I think it can definitely use as a medium, and then it can become the subject matter of an artwork, because like other mediums and mainly it carries something with it. It carries certain connotation, whether they are political or philosophical or artistic, and the way it gets used continuously shapes what can actually mean working with artificial intelligence. And if we keep an eye on this, I think it can definitely work as a medium or even a meta medium that allows us to explore how we actually build these things and how we see meaning making, how we attach meaning to certain aspects that we put into the system. Thank you very much.
Okay, we thank Iulia again.